Hey guys, and welcome to Coffee and Christ today. As you can see, yet again, I actually don't have my coffee with me, so I guess it's a Coffee and Christ. I guess I should probably.
Christ is here, though.
Christ is absolutely
Yes.
present always.
Amen.
I don't know about you guys. I'm starting to get kind of bored. I'm having a pretty serious case of cabin fever there in my house. So much so that I actually have a song stuck in my head. You know, that ridiculous nonsense song. Last night I had a crazy dream. Took a little rowboat to China. I have no reason why it should be stuck in my head. It makes no sense. But
he has sung that multiple times today. I've had enough. I'm good.
It's stuck. It kind of describes the way my mind has been working, that I've been so bored. It's just kind of meandering around, going nowhere, makes no sense whatsoever. It's just, I'm just kind of bored.
Yeah.
I suspect many of you are probably in the same general boat, but there's a sense in which that boredom kind of stems a little bit from a sense of loss, if you will, a loss of freedom. And now that's really not a true loss. It's, just not really having anything to do. Doesn't really compare to some of the true loss that you guys have experienced.
Yeah.
Some of you have experienced loss of loved ones already. Some of you have experienced a loss of relationships, or at least had relationships that are going through a challenging time in the midst of all of this craziness because you're not able to get together.
Right.
Some of you, especially those of you who are in school, have experienced losses associated with that, whether it be the loss of just not being with your pals, whether it be the loss of learning, or for those of you who are playing sports, the loss of tournaments and possible championships. Some of you, those of you who are seniors, a loss of prom, a loss of graduation ceremonies maybe, and your families are experiencing a loss of getting to see you do those things.
Yeah.
And so we kind of wanted to take just a little bit of time to be serious today and talk about how we work through that time of loss. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't, we can find ourselves getting stuck.
Yeah.
I remember one time I got a tractor stuck, a soybean hopper stuck in the middle of a muddy field. It took forever to get the thing out. But if we're not careful, the negativity and the kind of the depressing mood that loss can bring about, we can get stuck there, and it can take a lot of work to get out. And so we want to suggest some ways you can try and work through some of that loss now, at least begin to, as you process the losses that are occurring around you.
Because we're in the midst of the grind right now. At first it was like, oh, okay, something different.
Yep.
It's going to be at the end of, and maybe it'll end by Easter, and now that's come and gone, and now maybe at the end of April, and now they're talking May, and maybe even into June. And so we're really in the midst of that grind now, where things are settling in to be like, oh, what is the future? What does it hold? And where is the end? And so that desperation and that loss and that what will I do next it's a reality.
It is.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to come from Philippians chapter 4. We're going to look at verse 8 in just a second.
And say what this is again. It has a title to it. Replacement.
Yeah, the replacement principle is what we're going to be looking at. And we'll explain kind of what that looks like. But it comes out of Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this passage is the context in which Paul writes it. He's writing it from house arrest. He's in the middle of being imprisoned.
Yeah. So he's lost his freedom.
He's lost his freedom. He's losing money because he's having to pay those guards to watch him.
Yeah.
He's experiencing a sense of loss. He's writing to people who, in a sense, have experienced a sense of loss with him. Yeah. They're not able to interact with him in the same way.
Right.
And he, just prior to this, in verse 4, he says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. So he's telling them, rejoice in the midst of their loss, in the midst of their suffering, which, quite frankly, doesn't really make any sense at all.
It doesn't.
And then he expresses to them what he means by that in verse 8. And this is where the replacement principle comes in. But the first part of the replacement principle is realizing how you feel, realizing kind of where you're at.
Yeah.
It means being honest with yourself and being honest with everybody else. Being honest with how you're feeling in the moment. Some of you may be frustrated. Some of you may be angry. Some of you may be confused. Some of you may be sad. There's even the possibility that some of you out there think that you should feel a certain way. Maybe you think that you should feel sad, but you really don't feel anything at the moment. And all of those are okay.
Yep. It's
perfectly okay to be feeling those emotions. But before you can do anything, you have to admit how you're feeling. Admit it to yourself, admit it to somebody who you care about, who you trust, and admit this is where I'm feeling at this particular moment.
Yeah, there's a commercial that I think many of you have probably seen. I think it's the Mayo Clinic, and it's a commercial where there's this young man, and he's being driven by his father through these different roads, country roads, and there are times you can see on his face that he's wrestling with things in his life. You don't know exactly what it is yet as the commercial unfolds. And then you see the vehicle pull over, and this kid gets out and he screams out, and he's lifting his hands up in anger and fear and bitterness. He's screaming out over this lake, and they get back in the vehicle, and eventually the vehicle gets to, well, I think it's the Mayo Clinic. And obviously the theme is this kid has some sort of illness, something that is going on within him. And he's frustrated, and he vocalizes, he verbalizes it, he lets it out. And these are good things to do, but to
Absolutely.
know that there's a place to take these frustrations to, a place to replace these things with, to a place to get healed and to have not the same thing at the end, but something different at the end, but there is a healing at the end. And that's what I think this commercial really helps me with in this sense of loss, that things are different and trying, and there's a place to scream, and it's okay to feel upset, but there's a place to take these things.
Absolutely. The next part of the replacement principle is after you've kind of admitted how you feel, it's to follow what Paul talks about here in Philippians 4:8. Mm-hmm. Ask yourself, is there anything at all going on in the midst of this that could be considered excellent or praiseworthy? Anything at all. It could be something really simple. It might just be, well, at least now I have time to clean my room. I mean, hopefully there's something more than that, but it might be something like simple as that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times when we talk about loss, we talk about the idea of memories. Because when we think of loss, we generally think of like a funeral. And one of the things we tell people is cherish the memories. Cherish the memories you have of when things were good. That same general idea applies to now. Cherish the memories that you had previously of the things you were able to do, but cherish the memories that you're making now as well. As you're getting to interact with your family, as you probably are doing silly, funny videos and different kind of things, just try not to be bored. Cherish those memories and appreciate them. And it could be that that's the positive thing you focus on, that we're making memories. It might be that we have the opportunity to grow closer to God. It could be anything. You ask yourself, is there anything excellent or praiseworthy about this particular situation? And choose to focus on that.
Yeah.
But here's where the replacement principle comes in. Now that you've identified what you consider to be excellent or praiseworthy, when you're feeling those negative emotions, and when you're willing to admit them, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling angry, frustrated, whatever it is, you then choose to focus on that thing that is excellent or praiseworthy, even if it's just simply the memories. Choose to focus on it, and what you'll discover is it's going to change your outlook just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, we're told in Romans chapter 8 that God works all things together for the good of those who love him. That doesn't mean that every situation is good. Nor does it mean that every situation has the outcome that we desired or that we planned or that we might like to see or that we might consider good. What it does mean, though, is that in the midst of the darkness, God is working, and he refuses to allow darkness or evil to have the last word. But he chooses to take something out of it and create something that's good.
Yeah.
Well, we have confidence that God is doing that right now. So in the midst of all this, one of the things you might focus on is, what is God doing now in your life? How is God using this particular situation to help shape you? Because we know that he's going to bring something out of it that is to our benefit, that is to our good. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to miss it. If we focus on the negative continually, we might actually miss the good that comes out of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we're focusing on choosing to use the replacement principle, looking for anything excellent or praiseworthy, then we can see when God shows up and takes that which is good out of that which is dark, mm-hmm. and that which is negative.
Yeah. There's life in loss still, isn't there? I mean, there's something that we can find alive even when we face loss. There's a life moment, there's a life memory, there's a life lesson, there's something that we can find that has life in the midst of loss. And so the replacement principle really helps that idea of finding the life that is in existence within the loss, because there is still something good and something worthy and something that can be used to glorify God and to lift up and build up our lives in many ways. And, part of what you're saying, and I really want to make sure we hammer this home, and I know we're going to end this soon, but it's that action. It's taking action. It's not just a thought. It's the action of releasing. It's the action of crying out. It's the action of recognizing there's anger or bitterness or pain or anguish and allowing yourself to have that action of those things, but then taking the action of looking for the good, seeking that contemplation, the meditation, the looking around, the evaluating, and looking for the light and the life within the loss, and replacing it then with that focusing on the good, and then acting on the things that are good and life worthy within that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the midst of all this, as you're processing your loss, as you experience emotions, admit those emotions. Mm-hmm. Then look, is there anything excellent or praiseworthy going on that you could choose to focus on? And focus on it. As you use that replacement principle, be looking for, how is God active in this moment? What is he doing? What is he creating in your life that you could be towards your benefit? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you strength.